So I hope you enjoyed that little clip. It's actually a very touching show if you can find it. Probably find the whole thing on YouTube if you want to. But you know what I want you to think about for just a minute in terms of this personal selling and door-to-door selling. Remember those of you who had the media class, and any one of you who studied media with me at all, remember when I speak about out of home, I speak about it's an uninvited guest. You're walking through your day and you didn't ask to be shown a whole bunch of ads on every conceivable surface that you're passing, and yet you are. And so it's very easy to ignore those visuals, especially if they're not even moving, they're just static visuals. And that's why effective out of home needs to have what we called provocative simplicity. It needs to provoke. It needs to capture your attention. It needs to puzzle you just a little bit and engage your mind. And the same holds true, I think it can be said, of a banner ad, which again, you haven't asked, when you brought up that site for free. And it puts a lot of banners on there, or puts a video on there that's going to run for 4 seconds. You didn't ask for that. So these are all uninvited guests. They need to get you involved, get your attention, and get you involved if they can. And so that's even more the case with a door-to-door salesman like Bill Macy in that little TV show. Just put yourselves in the shoes of Bill Macy. You're walking through a neighborhood, you have your sample bag or whatever it is, and you're only going to make money for your family if you can sell some of these machines. And if you've seen Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, with his was some kind of X-ray machine he had, I forget exactly, but he had a medical device machine he was taking to doctors' offices. A little more of a B2B sell there, okay, but if he couldn't sell the machines, he wasn't going to make any money, and he paid for the machines in his case. So what do you do when you knock on the door and somebody opens the door? What do you say? What look is on your face? What clothes do you wear? What shoes do you wear? When you go into the doctor's office, the same thing. You've got on, you're wearing a pair of blue jeans and a t-shirt. I mean, what do you look like? And what do you say when the doctor says, well, come in and show me this machine? And you maybe go into the doctor's office and you look around. And you try to figure out, you see the picture of him with his family, he likes to ski, whatever it is. So it's just as with these other uninvited media, the creative content, if you will, of a direct personal sales pitch needs to have structure. It needs to have, many of these are scripted for people just to make it easier, particularly ones that are done on the phone. Yes, you have to be able to work within it and kind of be a human being within it if you're going to be successful. But anyway, I just want you to think about that for a minute. I do want to talk just about a little personal anecdote with direct sales. Something happened to me. It's quite some time ago. Going the wrong way. Well, here we go. All right. Can happen to anybody. All right, so most of you know that this is a vacuum cleaner. And it is actually, I think you can almost read the logo there. It's a Kirby, K-I-R-B-Y vacuum cleaner. I can't tell you how thrilled I was when I came home. I've been married for a few years. We were still living in a one-bedroom apartment on West 79th Street in Amsterdam. And I came home to my wife at the time. Here's a more recent picture of her. It's Susan. Oh, she'd love it if she knew she was in my presentations. But this is very recent. Okay, of course, she's still lovely. But so I came home and found that she had purchased a Kirby vacuum cleaner that day. For some reason, she was home that day. Don't remember exactly why. Because a salesman had come to her door And she let him in, and he dumped the dirt on the rug, and he cleaned it, zipped it up, and he put something on the fabric of the couch, and he put another attachment on the old Kirby and cleaned that up. And oh my gosh, so many attachments and so many things. And of course, the reason I was so happy was that it cost $1,500. She was very pleased. She said, well, it's worth the money. I'm going to really take care of all the things here. And, in those days, she did the vacuuming. I can tell you I started doing it at some point, and I sure do it now. Anyway, not to be sexist. What I don't know is that Kirby actually has a Flowbee attachment, which, if she still had the machine, I might want to borrow it if I were allowed to go outside, and I could actually cut my own hair with the Flowbee, which is a vacuum and cutting device that attaches to your vacuum cleaner, suctions up your hair, and cuts it so you get a one length of hair look all over, which with somebody like me, who cares? But interesting little story, and I can tell you, it takes a personal sales call with a live demonstration to get somebody. And my ex-wife Susan is normally very, very good with money and very tight, but she actually, put out the $1,500. And I would say only a personal sales call is going to get that done. So anyway, I just couldn't resist telling you that little story. So telephones kind of came along in the, I want to say 1870s and 80s, kind of got invented more or less, or at least put into practical use. We'll talk about the history of that a little bit in a second, but this is the symbol of what was a very effective ad for the Yellow Pages. And I don't know, you guys may have some memory of what the Yellow Pages were. And it was a local business phone book. The pages were yellow, and it would come out every spring. And I remember in my building on the Upper West Side, there would be a stack of Yellow Pages left downstairs, because we all had our service through AT&T. This is before the big breakup of AT&T. You picked up your Yellow Pages, and if you wanted a dentist, you went to D, and all the dentists were in there, and they could take little ads if they wanted to, or a little bit bigger ads. So the slogan for the Yellow Pages was to let your fingers do the walking. In other words, you weren't, walking around the neighborhood looking for a dentist. And so the same thing happened with a lot of the door-to-door sales. It was with the telephone. Why don't we just try calling people at home, and let's see if we can do it that way? And so there was, we'll get into this a little bit more, but there were a number of products that were sold that way successfully. I can think of one, aluminum siding was sold that way. Even today, stockbrokers who are just starting out, who don't have a book of business, call you. They'll email you, call you at home. That's one of the telemarketing calls I get. But that one, at least, is not a robocall. That one is usually a real person who's just trying to engage anyone they can to do some business. So the telephone and telemarketing kind of stepped in when the telephone technology, was more available, particularly with touch tone dialing. And more B2C sales calls were made that way. And now it's gone too far, as we all know, but we'll get to that later in a minute. But that's the idea. It's doing it over the phone, this happy lady talking to this happy man who feels like a real winner, I guess. Maybe because he said no to the $1,500 vacuum and feels a sense of pride and relief and just plain elation, maybe. But telemarketing for the company, for the business doing it, saves time and money. You're not walking all around a neighborhood, burning out your shoe leather. You're dialing and dialing and dialing. More calls, more contacts, You save time, money, travel, wear and tear, all kinds of things. It's harder to make the sale that way than it is face-to-face. Face-to-face selling may be the most effective way to sell, even more than TV, right? But the issue is that the person has to get the door open first and then come inside, and that's where it's a little hard. The percentage of people, of times you're able to do that, is maybe not so great. Much less effective than in-person sales. Okay, so we've now taken a kind of an overall swing at a bird's eye view at telemarketing, selling from a distance, marketing from a distance. It's used for prospecting. It's also used for customer relationship management, inbound phone calls particularly. So, all right, given all that, and hopefully we've established it's a medium. Here's our more detailed agenda for what I want to go over in this lecture. We'll do a definition of telemarketing. We'll give a brief history of the telephone, really brief, just more in terms of devices and stuff that made it easier to do the telemarketing. There's actually a nice piece I picked up on the web of kind of a history of telemarketing, and it's a fair amount of text, but it gives you a really nice kind of swooping overview of it. Then we're going to focus on the 4 kinds of telemarketing. Inbound, B2C, B2B and B2C. Outbound, B2B and B2C. We'll kind of get up to date with some of the more recent happenings, particularly in the B2C, the outbound telemarketing. Some legislation that's been passed, do not call list. Then more recently, as you all know, we have robocalls, we have spoofing and neighbor spoofing. Neighbor spoofing is when the phone number, of the origin phone call looks like your own phone number, has your own area code. It's called neighbor spoofing. We'll look at the players, but you're not going to recognize a single name, I don't think. Then we'll talk about CPM and quality of the impression, and kind of get up to date with what's going on with the virus and everything we're in, because actually the case is that there are a lot more phone calls now between people than there were in the past. Phone usage of people reaching out to touch someone is up way more than internet usage. Okay, that's our agenda. So let's just keep rolling here, and remember our theme is the dark horse, the kind of unknown thing that's becoming more successful, more prevalent. So the definition of telemarketing: method of direct marketing, which a salesperson solicits prospective customers to buy products or services, either over the phone or through a subsequent face-to-face or web conferencing appointment scheduled during the call. So that's outbound telemarketing. That's usually what's meant by telemarketing, but as we know, there are other kinds of telemarketing. And this is my definition, which is using the telephone to take orders and service customers, or to help in the solicitation of new business. That's the little one I wrote. And let's remember there's inbound and outbound. The outbound telemarketing, not the B2B. B2B is also pretty pesky and bothersome for people, but the one we all hate, where a phone rings at home, is outbound, business to consumer. And here's a little bit about costs. Just want to make the point, and we'll get to this later, that the telephone, as you can see here, is the most expensive advertising medium on a per thousand basis after face-to-face selling. It's got to be cost-effective to be successful, and for many marketers it is. This is from a text in the my Direct Marketing 211 class. The text is a little old, but it's a very good text. And these are some of the inbound and outbound costs, and I'm going to show these later. I will go over it again, but inbound is a lot less expensive. This is when you get someone on the phone. This is the cost of an actual completed call. You can see that most expensive is B2B outbound calling. This is where you're paying an expensive salesperson for the most part, so it costs a lot more. With inbound business and consumer, the salaries are a lot less because you're usually having kind of customer service specialists handle these. So just a little bit, and